in all its glory, all of its complexity. And the more you know,
Back in the 50s, moderately successful science fiction author and glider pilot Lafayette Ron Hubbard decided that writing cheap science fiction under various pseudonyms was not granting him the gratuitous income stream that he so desperately desired. Hubbard had dropped out of a civil engineering degree earlier in life to pursue his dream of writing pulp science fiction novels, but he then found to his abject shock that this was not in and of itself a viable road to riches. A short stint in the Navy seemed promising, but quickly saw him forcibly removed from command of his vessel twice. Continuing a search for a simple, honest way to make reliable income, he arrived at the most lucrative decision of his life yet. He would start a religion. With the publication of Dianetics, the modern science of mental health in 1950, L. Ron Hubbard was a best-selling author for the first time in his life, and considerably wealthy. He was convinced that he had found his niche. The idea behind Dianetics was a new movement of self-help based on various works of Sigmund Freud, personal anecdotes from Hubbard's life, and some Eastern philosophy thrown in for good measure. Hubbard claimed his research was scientifically sound and compatible with present-day understandings. The fact that actual scientists and journalists described the book as evidence-free, without any scientific data, and containing potentially lethal advice mattered little to Hubbard. He finally had the recognition that he dreamed of. A few legal battles and rebrands later, and Scientology, a movement based on Dianetics, was established as the income stream that would sustain Hubbard's financial needs until his death in the late 70s. Scientology is a religion that attempts to operate in extreme secrecy. Due to the controversial nature of the Scientological canon, the holy texts of Scientology are characteristically difficult to access and rife with terminology designed to baffle and frustrate readers unfamiliar with the extreme doublespeak the religion employs. In order to advance up the ranks of the religion, parishioners undertake interrogation sessions known as auditing, where a device called an E-meter is used to measure the activity of one's spirit. For reference, I prepared a simple chart that explains exactly how the E-meter does this. As you might reasonably assume, the E-meter itself is not a particularly reliable way to measure anything. Its technology is by and large a miniaturized polygraph or lie detector, a device famed for its inaccuracy, bias, and unscientific principles of operation. The United States Court of Appeals enacted law in 1969, forcing the Church of Scientology to publish disclaimers in its own texts that by itself, the E-meter does nothing. I actually wanted to buy a second-hand E-meter for this video, so I went onto eBay, and Jesus Christ! While I was annoyed at the extortionate price tag for a device that was arguably obsolete at the time of its creation, I was not at all surprised. See, Scientology is extremely good at charging money for things. One only has to look at the initial cost of going clear to understand this. If you've heard of the philosophical concept of reincarnation, this will probably sound familiar to you. Scientology claims that all bad things in the world today are caused by horrible experiences in past lives. In order to go clear, you must remove the influences of these bad memories through hundreds of hours of auditing, a process wherein a member of the church asks you various banal questions about your life and notes the reaction on the E-meter, which you are hooked up to the entire time. Sound tedious? Well, you might feel it's more worthwhile when you've paid for it yourself. Current estimates of the average cost of going clear total around $128,000 to $400,000 United States dollars. It's not uncommon for churchgoers to sell their car, mortgage their house, extort money from relatives, and drop their life savings on this process. After going clear, you are on the bridge to total freedom. From this point, you begin ascending the operating thetan levels, containing Scientology's most closely guarded secrets about the universe. What these levels actually contain, the abilities one gains by completing, and the sorts of tasks one is expected to complete by doing them have traditionally been kept under extremely close guard. In fact, the highest level, Operating Thetan 8, is only available on the church's private ocean liner, the Free Winds, where initiates are taken to a room with armed guards and given a briefcase, which is physically attached to their clothing. At this point, they walk into a different room with more guards and are allowed to read the contents of the briefcase. The extreme security around the procedures means that any information on the real lore and mythology behind the belief system has been unavailable to the general public, or indeed anyone unwilling to part with vast sums of money. People wanting to know why so many celebrities are Scientologists now have an answer to their question. Only they can actually afford it, because going clear is just the first step. The madness and insanity only exponentially increase from this point. Operating Thetan Level 3 is the first part at which some of the more crazy elements of Scientology that you may have heard of come into play. This contains handwritten notes from L. Ron Hubbard himself that explain where the whole universe comes from. What follows is a breakdown of his teachings and thoughts on the origin of civilization. Did you think the universe was 14 billion years old, as is general scientific consensus? Wrong. It's 4 quadrillion years old. 95 billion years ago, Xenu was the elected warlord ruler of the Galactic Confederation. He sought to solve his overpopulation woes by loading the multiple trillions of people on his 57 planets under his rule into spacecraft that looked exactly like the DC-9 aeroplanes, but with rocket boosters instead of jet engines. He then took them to Earth, which was at that time known as Tajiak, and put hydrogen bombs into volcanoes. He used these volcano bombs to blow everyone the fuck up and kill them, using electronic fly strips to capture their thetans. He then showed the disembodied souls a bunch of videos of things like the London Underground and Jesus and New York Times Square, so they wouldn't remember what had all happened. By the way, this had all occurred on the Canary Islands. The upshot of this all is that our problems, all the problems on Earth today, in fact, are entirely caused by this incident, referred to as Incident 2, that has left thetans traumatized and attached to bodies that are not their own. The Scientological auditing process is supposedly designed to remove the stowaway thetans from our bodies, leaving only our own original soul, our core thetan, free. By the time that your average Scientologist finds this out, they are already invested by the way of multiple thousands of dollars. Obviously, these things are closely guarded secrets of Scientology, and they don't want anyone reading the documents or finding out about it. However, a rival splinter faction of Scientologists, calling themselves Free Zone Scientologists, have, through a combination of memory-based recall, smuggling, hacking, and general espionage, collated more or less the entirety of the materials used during Scientology's very expensive and very secret courses. You cannot make this shit up. The documents are available on WikiLeaks, and I downloaded them all this morning. So what do they contain? Disappointingly, only a small amount of interesting weird shit. Most of it's drenched in doublespeak so thick that a non-Scientologist would have real trouble deciphering things. For instance, a section on correct beam handling, where you repeat the process until no more beams. Alright, so these are some of the secret recovered Scientology documents, and I'd like you, Scientology newbie, to just give me your honest thoughts on the decipherability and understandability of some of these questionnaires, auditing processes, etc., etc.
Okay, I'll try my best to wrap my feeble mind around it.
All right, so this is an introductory duration of auditing guide. This is how long we're going to interrogate you for.
Okay. Wait, so is auditing just another word for interrogation?
Yeah, they put you on like a lie detector and ask you random questions.
Oh.
In order to clear all the bad souls out of your body.
Oh, obviously. Right.
Yes. As it says here, it isn't how much you get done in a session, it's the getting on bit by bit that counts. It's like digging a long ditch. What you don't dig isn't dug. The bank contains less than was first thought, but it contains enough. In 3 or 4 months, you will have to make it if you do a good job on each item. And don't fool about with the bank. It goes into re-stimulation if you stir it up.
You know how you see those posts or whatever, and it's just like tap the middle button of your auto-predictive text?
Yeah. And post what comes out.
And post what comes out. I'm getting that kind of vibe from this.
This would have been written by L. Ron Hubbard in the 60s.
Oh.
So his brain just automatically did that.
It just kind of like farted it out.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
In fact, the things that don't make items read properly are things like loud shouting, body movement while chortling, fiddling the one-hand electrode, tensing muscles, fiddling the one-hand electrode.
That's what the kids call it, hey.
Auditing past an arc break. Doing a list 7 every time you don't get a read or feel odd. So I've been looking into the Scientology doublespeak for quite a while.
Okay, yeah.
And I've been trying to understand what their jargon is. But even after looking into it, it's so fucking difficult to understand what it's supposed to mean.
It's kind of like Cockney, but for schizophrenics, by the sounds of it.
That's a good description of what it's like. Confidential data. A clear has lost. So a clear is someone who's like gone to the first level in Scientology and gotten the bad body thetans cleared out of him.
So it's like in Dark Souls where you kind of...
Yes.
Okay, it's like that.
Yeah, you get all the bad spirits cleaned out of you, except later on they tell you that you actually don't have the bad spirits cleaned out of you and you have to pay more money. Yes.
Not again.
Well, a clear has lost or erased the matter, energy, space, and time connected to the thing called mind.
Called mind, okay.
Called mind. It has been cleared of the mass, pictures, etc. in the bank or mind. It is a negative again.
Was a lot of this redacted and people have just kind of filled in the words with what they think it would be?
Only in the later levels. This is actually just verbatim what it is.
Okay, so a clear has lost or erased the matter, energy, space, and time connected to the thing called mind. He has been cleared of the mass, pictures, etc. in the bank or mind. So when he's talking about bank, what's he referring to?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
Apparently clear occurs when someone stops mocking up bank.
Apparently. That's what they say.
I know what mocking up is. Mocking up is in Scientology when you think of an object in your mind which causes it to exist in some physical reality.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I still haven't wrapped my head around what any of this means, but I'm kind of getting a little bit of an understanding.
Well, you're doing better than me.
Okay.
Did you ever read that book, The Secret?
No, I didn't.
Well, this is very similar to The Secret in that you're mocking it up. The Secret stated essentially that if you think positive thoughts and envision yourself in positive ways, then you are attracting that from the universe. If you envision it negatively, then you are repelling it from the universe. So the secret is think about the stuff you want.
Good thoughts lead to good vibes.
I assume it is like somewhat applicable at some abstract level. But I don't know if it has a supernatural carry-in.
Universally provided good vibes. I feel that. Okay.
The person who has actually gone clear will express the clear cognition or some version of it.
Okay. So a clear mindset.
I assume so.
Okay.
Or some point in the Dianetic Clear Special Intensive.
My like mild dyslexia keeps reading clear as sure. So every time I see the word clear, it's like upon going sure or at some point on the Dianetic Sure Special Intensive. So
if you have mild dyslexia, I apologise profusely for the absolute mindfuck of a document that we're looking through.
But it's just the one word. It's clear.
Well, it's only getting worse because OT, Operating Thetan 1, so this is the first level, dated 21st July 1968, and this is a handwritten note from L. Ron Hubbard, giving you instructions on how to become clear. So what's the first instruction?
Walk around and round bodies until you have a cognition. Make a report saying how many you counted and your... Is that what? Cognition?
Yes. And
what?
Yep. Yeah, and step two, note several large and several small female bodies.
Until you have a cognition.
Note it down.
What other words is cognition synonymous with? Like, what female bodies are you noting, and what kind of cognition are you developing from the female bodies?
Cognition just means thought, so I assume it could be interpreted in many ways. But I think Well, he goes on to say, note several large and several small male bodies until you have a cognition. So
yeah, well, it's an open playing field for my cognition development.
I'll go out on a limb and say that homosexuality is forbade by Scientology, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong. And
actually, no, I thought they recently said that it's okay. It was for a little bit. Not, again, like this is from my limited knowledge, but I think it's okay.
That's good news for Tom Cruise.
Good, I know, honestly. So, but I haven't heard too much about him and his Scientology career. Wasn't he supposed to be like the Scientology messiah?
Well, he's only OT3 apparently. He's not even like the highest level. He's not even like...
What's the highest level?
OT8.
Oh.
Yeah. So they're actually
that goes to like deep web level Scientology.
There are meant to be 15 levels of Operating Thetan, but apparently L. Ron Hubbard, who is dead, will only release the next set of Operating Thetan levels once everyone in the world is OT8. So everyone has to get to OT8 before we can go up to
So it's
OT15.
like A Buddhist search for enlightenment and nirvana is like Tom Cruise's search for OT8.
It's like if EA ran Buddhism.
Oh.
All right, so there's some more here. It gets more obtuse. Walk around and note someone walking towards you, then someone walking away, then someone walking toward you, etc. Due to cognition. Note it down.
Could you like walk in just a room full of mirrors so you're just noting yourself?
I wonder if anyone's done that. I wonder if like those giant Scientology buildings just have like mirror mazes in them.
This is actually just L. Ron Hubbard writing his manifesto while he was stuck in a mirror maze.
I believe that.
It's a lot of walking.
I'd absolutely believe that. Look into space and find places where there are no persons. Due to cognition. Note it down. Anyway, that's the end of OT1.
Oh.
So apparently you and I are clear now. All the bad body thetans are gone from our bodies.
Okay.
So I'm going to go on to some of the further... We've skipped 100 pages into the document here.
Oh. Okay. What's this?
Well, this is another series of processes one must do to level up in Scientology.
Okay.
So step 10.
So we just got the DLC. What do we have to do?
Invent a perceiving mind to stop a blinded mind. Explosion. What's number 11?
Stop a prejudiced, redacted, fair mind to invent a prejudiced mince mind. Explosion.
Number 12. Invent a clean mind to stop a dirty mind. Explosion.
You know what they say, don't touch your, what was it, electrical instrument?
Don't touch a single hand electrode.
Single hand electrode. Nah, none of that. Explosion.
In
Stop an arriving mind to invent a departed mind. Explosion.
And then number 18, invent a loving mind to stop a hated mind. There's no explosion.
What?
It doesn't have explosion written.
Ooh,
So
no.
17 explosions, and then he decides that's enough exploding
That's
for the
enough
day.
exploding.
and you're going to just invent some more minds. And the next page starts with the explosions.
Okay.
Explosion.
So what do you think, like, an explosion is to him? Like, I mean, I know an explosion for me is when I have coffee, but do you think he had some other, like not a literal explosion, but is it like an explosion of the mind, or what is, how did L. Ron Hubbard define his explosions?
There's the obvious, like you can make the obvious sex joke, but I actually can't think of anything else. I can't think of another thing that he could have meant there. So when you get a little bit further on into the OT levels, it starts asking you some really interesting questions.
Okay.
Have you ever had an abortion?
No.
Have you ever exposed an infant?
Exposed an infant,
Have
or
you-
like exposed yourself to an infant?
Have you ever caused hostile factions within a family?
Most likely, yes.
Have you ever been sexually aroused by an object?
Oh, absolutely.
Have you ever made love to a person of the wrong age?
Oh.
Have you ever made love to a person of the wrong sex?
Oh.
Have you ever made love to a person of the wrong class? Have you ever made love to a person of the wrong race? And
Jeez,
it-
I don't want to answer that.
It then goes on to ask further questions about sex. Have you ever used the wrong body part for intercourse? Have you
Have you
ever
ever used a single-handed electrode?
have you ever made someone's body more exciting by warping or distorting it? Have you ever failed to have intercourse with someone that you should have?
All the time.
Is there anything about your
What-
sex life that would be unsafe to reveal?
What? I feel like so we just go from like auto-generated like L. Ron Hubbard mind fart to suddenly just like, are you horny? Like
Yes, just an entire. I imagine like L. Ron Hubbard being like 50 years old interviewing a group of like 19-year-old women and just thinking, okay, how can I spin this in my favor?
Okay.
I'll make it part of Scientology. I'll just make these questions part of Scientology.
Imagine if like L. Ron Hubbard like hopped on a Meagle and he's just spitting these questions out. It's not like age, sex, or location. It's, have you ever failed to fertilize crops?
Maybe that should be the next episode. We go on to Omegle and ask, have you ever bred warped life forms?
Have you ever polluted water sources?
Have you ever destroyed other life forms?
Have you seen Blade Runner 2049?
I have not.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, okay.
Do they fail to maintain a machine properly in it?
Well,
have you ever destroyed a useful object? A beautiful object?
My Tamagotchi died.
Have you ever hid an object? Have you ever made harmful combinations of matter? And it
All
gets
the time.
it gets for. I wonder if that
Milk in my stomach.
I wonder if they would like classify really, really bad cocktails as that.
Just jungle juice.
Have you ever perverted the use of scientific
Anything with
discovery?
tequila.
It would be Kahula and a vodka cruiser and beer. Have you ever built something that doesn't work? Ooh. Have you ever put things too far apart?
It tends to happen. But
have you ever put things too close together?
What is like the right distance?
I don't know.
Have you ever forgotten a place?
Have you ever made an object mysterious?
Do you love your parents?
Have you ever misapplied energy? So it continues on and on and on and on and on. But we finally get to OT8, which is titled
The Actual Superpower Process. I like this.
All right. One thing that at some point during the running of this series of processes, so this is OT level 8. Apparently, if we read this without having extensively done the previous 7 operating thetan levels, we die.
Oh, what?
Our brains explode and we die.
Oh, so is that what happened to L. Ron Hubbard?
Apparently he did it all correctly.
Oh, okay.
But
how did he die, actually? Did he go in like a psychotic fit and throw himself into a barbed wire fence? Or?
There was psychosis involved, but I think it might have eventually just been a heart attack.
Do you think if G.G. Allen was still alive, he would be a Scientologist?
I'm really surprised Will Smith is not a Scientologist. One thing the auditor must not do is interrupt the person while in the middle of this major win or during the laughter. I'm not commentating here. This is what it says on the page.
Okay.
Otherwise, it will invalidate the win. The auditor simply maintains his TRs and lets the person have his win. The laughter can go on for some time, perhaps up to an hour. Be sure and just be there with the person during this win and not end the session until the laughter has subsided. The following is the last series of processes 1 runs on the superpower rundown. All right, is everyone ready to gain superpowers and fly?
I'm so ready.
Alternatively, our brains will explode and we'll die. One of those two things will happen.
Okay.
All right, here we go, the Scientology superpower process.
I'm ready to glow up.
Step 1. Give us step 1.
Okay. Get the idea that you have infinite power.
Get the idea that another has infinite power.
Get the idea that others have infinite power.
Get the idea that you can cause yourself to have infinite power.
Get the idea that you have been given infinite power.
Get the idea that another has been given infinite power.
Get the idea that others have been given infinite power.
Get the idea that you have caused yourself to be given infinite power.
Okay, at what point, if we fail to do this, will our heads explode?
I assume when we get to the end.
Okay. Get the idea that you can give another infinite power.
Get the idea that another can give you infinite power.
Get the idea that others can give others infinite power.
Get the idea that you can cause yourself infinite power.
Get the idea that you are infinite.
Get the idea that another is infinite.
Get the idea that others are infinite, and finally,
get the idea that you can cause yourself to be infinity. So there you go. We can all fly now because our brains haven't exploded, which must mean...
They have to subscribe first.
Right.
Oh.
If you guys subscribe, then you can fly, we can fly, and
and
we can all join Tom Cruise up there in the wild blue yonder.
And don't forget John Travolta as well. a lot of those questions could definitely be just applied to John Travolta's role in Hairspray. The ones from before.
No, yeah, that does make sense.
Have you ever created dark matter?
Before we wrap the video, I'd like to extend my heartfelt congratulations to the musician Beck, who has recently managed to oust himself from Scientology, and has after being born into it.
You could say he's so free.
He's free. He's a free zone Scientologist. Thank you for watching this episode of The Vomitorium. I hope you guys now have the idea that you have infinite power. Two, three, four. What if Scientology was real? What if Scientology was real? I'm going to take a shit in my own hat and mail it to David Miscavige, the leader of Scientology. He had his own wife abducted. Allegedly. What if Scientology was real? What if Scientology was real? What if Xenu, the alien warlord of Space Command, was imprisoned in a volcano on Earth right now? What if Scientology was real? What if Scientology was real? What if all the bad things in our lives today were caused by latent souls implanted in a mass event millions of years ago? What if Scientology was real? What if Scientology was real? What if Scientology...